Welcome back to Whispers from the Walls, everyone. Today, we're diving into a topic that, honestly, keeps me up at night, perhaps more than any jump scare ever could. We usually associate hauntings with old houses, rattling chains, the spectral kind of presence. But what if the real specters, the ones that truly cling to us, aren't dead at all? What if they're still very much alive, or at least the echoes of their actions are?
Oh, Jane, you've hit on something so profound there. It's like the difference between a fleeting fright and a deep soul-level chill that settles in and never really leaves. The idea that something or someone can haunt you without ever having to be a ghost is, I think, far more terrifying in its own way.
Physically terrifying, maybe not. But emotionally, psychologically, absolutely. Think about it. A ghost, by definition, is gone. It's a remnant. But the living? They have agency. They can actively cause pain, leave scars, manipulate. And those actions, even after they're gone from your immediate presence, can certainly linger like a very persistent phantom.
Exactly. You can't board up your emotional windows or put salt around the doors to keep out the memory of a cutting remark from a parent or the crushing weight of a partner's betrayal. Those things, they just stick with you. They become part of your internal landscape, shaping how you react to everything else.
That's such a brilliant way to put it, Bob. It becomes part of your internal landscape. And it reminds me so much of Lillian, the protagonist in the Quieting trilogy. Her story isn't about literal ghosts in a crumbling mansion, though she does contend with an old building. It's about the overwhelming weight of expectation, the sting of abandonment that she carries, the pressure to conform, to be correct, to just survive without making any noise.
Her struggle is so relatable, even if the specifics are unique to her. That pressure to be quiet, to not rock the boat, to fit into a mold someone else carved out for you. It's like you're constantly walking on eggshells, not for fear of a spectral presence, but for fear of disappointing, or worse, angering, the living people who have such a hold over you.
And the abandonment aspect, that's a wound that rarely heals cleanly. It leaves a void, but not an empty one. It's a void filled with questions, with self-doubt, with a constant replaying of what went wrong or what you could have done differently. That's a haunting more potent than any apparition. It rewires your sense of self-worth.
I think about the concept of inherited trauma or generational curses, Lillian's story touches on that too. The echoes of choices made long before she was even born, choices by her family or her community that still impact her life now. It's not a ghost of a person, but a ghost of an action, a decision, a societal expectation that transcends generations.
Exactly. The Quieting really makes you consider what truly clings to her. Is it the past itself? Is it the specific people who hurt her? Or is it those echoes of choices, decisions that set a certain path in motion for her entire lineage? It's this multi-layered, almost systemic haunting that's so fascinating and, frankly, unnerving.
And it brings up that ultimate fear for Lillian. What happens if she finally steps out of that silence? What if she finally breaks free from those expectations? That's the scariest part for so many of us, isn't it? The unknown of authenticity, the potential backlash from the living, from the systems that demand our silence.
It's a risk calculus, really. The comfort of the known, even if it's painful and confining, versus the terrifying freedom of the unknown. That internal debate, that psychological tug-of-war, is a form of self-haunting in a way. You're haunted by the what-ifs if you stay, and haunted by the what-ifs if you go.
And sometimes those what-ifs are really just the projections of other people, the fear of what they might say, what they might do, if you deviate from the path they laid out. That's a powerful haunting. It keeps people trapped in unhappy careers, unhappy relationships, just to avoid that perceived external judgment.
It's so true. I think about how many times I've hesitated to do something, not because I personally felt it was wrong, but because I could hear the voice of a past teacher or a family member, or even just societal norms whispering in my ear, telling me I shouldn't or couldn't. Those voices, they're not coming from beyond the grave, they're echoes of very much alive influences.
And those echoes are often internalized, aren't they? They become your own self-criticism. So you're not just being haunted by the original source, but you're now haunting yourself with their words, their judgments. It's a vicious cycle.
Which begs the question, How do you exorcise those kinds of ghosts? A real ghost you might call in a medium or a priest. But how do you banish the internalized voice of a disapproving parent or the shadow of a past trauma caused by a living person? It requires introspection, therapy, self-awareness, a conscious effort to rewrite those internal narratives.
It's a much harder fight, isn't it? Because it's not something external you can just run from, it's inside your own head. And sometimes, those hauntings are so deeply ingrained you don't even realize they're there. You just think that's just how I am, when in reality it's a response to an old wound or an old expectation.
And that's precisely what makes Lillian's journey in the quieting so compelling. She's not trying to solve a paranormal mystery. She's trying to untangle the emotional and psychological knots that have been tied around her entire life. She's trying to discern what parts of her are truly her and what parts are just the residue of other people's influence.
It makes me think about how we define safety. We build fences, lock doors, install alarms to protect ourselves from physical threats. But what defenses do we have against the psychological intrusions, the emotional wounds inflicted by others, often those closest to us? There's no physical barrier for that kind of haunting.
And the duration is different. A ghostly encounter might be brief, a flash of fear. But these living hauntings, they can span decades. A comment made when you were 7 can still sting when you're 70. That kind of longevity, that sustained impact, truly sets it apart.
You know, sometimes I think we even seek out things that continue the haunting. We fall into patterns, replicate dynamics from our past, almost subconsciously. Like if you were abandoned as a child, you might unknowingly gravitate towards relationships where you're constantly fearing or experiencing abandonment again. It's like the ghost of that past experience just keeps finding new ways to manifest.
That's a chilling thought, Bob, that we might, in a way, invite our own personal ghosts to stay, because they're familiar, even if they're painful. It speaks to the deep psychological programming that these living hauntings can imprint on us. Lillian's fight to step out of silence, then, isn't just about breaking free from external pressures, but from those internalized patterns as well.
Her journey is one of radical self-discovery, of reclaiming her own narrative. It's about facing those ghosts that wear no sheets, that have no rattling chains, but have beating hearts, and saying, no, this is my space now, these are my choices. It's incredibly brave.
And it makes me wonder, are we all a little bit haunted by the living? By the expectations of society, by the indelible marks left by our families and early relationships, by the collective history we inherit? It seems almost unavoidable. The question then becomes, how do you live with those specters without letting them define you?
I think it's about acknowledging them first. Not running away, not pretending they don't exist, but saying, okay, this is a part of my story, but it's not the whole story, and then actively writing the next chapters with a different pen, if that makes sense.
That's a beautiful metaphor, Bob, and that's what the quieting really invites us to do. Through Lillian's eyes, it pushes us to look beyond the obvious spooky elements and really delve into the human condition, the emotional architecture of our lives. It's a powerful exploration of the shadows that shape us, and whether those shadows are cast by the gone or by the still present.
It's a story about finding your own voice in a world that might have tried to silence you, and realizing that your loudest statement might just be breaking free from that imposed quiet. It's about understanding that some of the deepest terrors have beating hearts, but so do the greatest strengths.
Indeed, the capacity for harm from a living being, especially one we trust or love, can far outweigh the chilling effect of a traditional ghost. Because with the living, there's a betrayal of trust, a shattering of innocence, that a spectral presence simply can't achieve.
Yeah, a ghost might scare you, but a living person can break your spirit, and that's a much harder thing to recover from. So I'm with Alice. Lillian's journey in stepping out of that silence, that's heroic stuff.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that courage isn't always about facing a monster under the bed, but sometimes about facing the monsters within ourselves, placed there by the world around us. And sometimes, those monsters are just the echoes of the living, demanding we stay quiet. So thank you all for this incredibly insightful discussion. It's certainly given me a lot to think about.
You've been listening to Whispers from the Walls. Step into the quieting if you want to meet the shadows that shape Lillian's world.